Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to the Debrief with your friends here at Sandals Church. I am Stephanie Schaefer here with the PMB, Pastor Matt Brown.
Thank you for calling me that. You guys haven't been calling me that. Do you know that somebody made me some belt buckles that say that PMB?
No, why are you not wearing
I personalized belt buckles. I forgot my belt today, but I've been wearing it.
That's great.
That's pretty
fantastic. Sweet. And here on the Debrief, we are in a series right now where we are being real with the Enneagram, and we're spending 9 weeks going over the 9 types of the Enneagram. And today we have 2 of our favorite 2s around here.
Yes.
Meet Megan and Chris. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves real quick?
Sure. I'm Megan, and I work as the Connections Associate here at Sandals.
And I am Chris, and I am the campus supervisor for Sandals Church East Valley.
Right on. What does that mean, campus supervisor?
Ultimately, if you think of Pastor Adam, who's my boss there, he does all of the care for the campus, soul care groups, anything where people need to be cared for. I do a lot of the operational stuff, Sunday mornings, events, and I supervise the staff team there.
Man, you got a lot of work because that campus needs one of our improvements. So we're going to try to expand that campus because you guys are growing so fast. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Megan, what exactly is a Connections Associate? Just for
Great question.
Megan runs all the things, and I ask her all the questions all the time.
I make sure that whatever projects go through the Connections department get done on time and well. And that means a lot of things.
She also has another role as a 2 on church. Megan put together my emergency pill packet with allergies, Tums, all of those things. Literally, I have a bag that bought me, and it has like Advil. It has Claritin,
Tums.
toothbrush, Tums, floss, like all of this stuff. Because whenever I needed something, I would go to you.
Her desk is
She'd
right
have
by
to
his
dig through her
office.
purse, and she's like my personal Rite Aid. So I'm glad that you're here.
Personal writer, she's my personal counselor.
Yeah.
Megan's who I go to.
She's my drug dealer.
Yeah.
Megan is my drug dealer.
Something I never thought I'd get
It's just,
called.
part of it's because our offices are so close together.
You're right
And
next
part
door.
of it's because you have like a gigantic purse that literally, like, there's like
Oh,
lost
really
dogs or something in there. It's huge.
I do find things in there
Yeah.
that I didn't realize were in there. So that is true.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
But she really did that for me. She's a 2.
yeah.
She's a helper. She's helped me out. So I
I
still
think
have
I was
that
your
packet.
assistant at the time, and I was like, oh, that would be a
That
good
would have been a
idea.
good job for you to do.
I should have done that.
Yeah. Not a lot of 2
It's
over here
okay.
to my left.
Megan helps us all. So, well, here on the Debrief, we are going through the Enneagram, and we've had a lot of people, I think over 3,500 people so far,
Yes.
have taken our Sandals Church self-discovery assessment, which is incredible. You can find that at move.sc/self-discovery while we're in the process of this series. After this series, you'll need to go through our real workshops here at Sandals Church to qualify to be able to take that assessment. But right now, if you haven't yet taken it, go ahead, hop on there and do that. We've gotten a lot more questions in from people who have taken the assessment, and we covered this a little bit last week, but I want to kind of refresh again. Can you talk through a lot, like people are worried about having really high unhealthy scores across the board or having a lot of high scores at the same number? Can you just give a refresh on that real quick?
Yeah. Just relax. Being real with yourself is a lifelong process. It's why God gave us this unique vision at Sandals Church to be real with ourselves, because we're a mess. And so remember Matthew 5:48, be perfect as your heavenly Father in heaven is perfect. That word means whole and complete. And so we're all trying to move towards that and to become whole and complete. And we all have a lot of work to do. And so we are born as sinners into a sinful world. And then we have sinful parents. And so we begin to adapt as children to this sinful world with our sinful self. And we develop strategies to survive. And those strategies oftentimes are effective in childhood, but are destructive in adulthood. And so what you're seeing is some of the adaptive strategies that you've created as a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to survive, but many of them are very, very unhealthy. And so the numbers on your score that are healthy means this is today we're talking about 2s. This is when you help for the right reasons and for the right purpose, and your heart is in the right place. And so when it's unhealthy, oftentimes the 2, it can be self-serving or to seem self-important or to be needed. And so that's what you want to look at each week. And so I would say if you don't have any unhealthy scores, maybe you're not that real with yourself. So if they're all unhealthy, maybe you're a very, very critical 1 of yourself. And so look at that 1 score in order to interpret that. But I just would say, especially for our 1s, we love you guys. It's okay. We know you're better than us. Just relax, breathe deep. Don't jump off a cliff. It's going to be okay. Just hang in there. We're all a work in progress. When Tammy and I first did the assessment that you guys are taking, because I had studied the Enneagram for about 10 years, and actually it was part of my doctoral research when I was getting my doctorate at Talbot. I didn't score nearly as unhealthy as I did when Tammy and I were kind of like, okay, we got a real problem here, and we're really, really struggling. And so I was super unhealthy. I had several scores in the unhealthy margin, well over 95. Yeah. So we'll talk next week about me as a 3, but my 3 was just really, really unhealthy. And so I had to really, really become to grips with that. And so all of us, don't be afraid by it. If you want to cure cancer, the first step is to admitting you have it. So let's just breathe deep and work through this. And here's the beautiful thing about you that I don't think most of us really recognize is you can change. It's hard. It's not easy. For those of you who don't know me, one of my good friends, Bob Stockton, is turning 65 years old this year. And I made the mistake. He's a 2. I made the mistake of saying, what do you want for your birthday? I want to do something really special for you for your birthday, because he's always helping. He's always serving. And I was not prepared for what he was going to ask me to do. He said, I really want to do one last Ironman for my 65th birthday, and I would like you to do it with me. And I was just like, I am the biggest moron in the world, because training for an Ironman is ridiculous, and it's just horrible. But here's the thing is, so I've been on this 6-month journey, right, of working, exercising, eating right, whatever. And now my body, 6 months into this, my body is beginning to adapt to the changes I'm asking it to make. It's hard, it's awful, but now all that hard work, I'm seeing it. And so that's what I would say as you look at the Enneagram like the Ironman. It's very, very difficult. This is going to take, at minimum, months of work. For some of us, years, and for some of us, a lifetime of work to change ourselves into who God is calling us to be. And if you're a 2, God's not calling you to be a 3. He's calling you to be a healthy 2. He's calling you to step into health. So think about one of our, if you've been at Sandals Church for a long time, one of our core verses is James 5:16. Confess your sins one to another. Listen to these words so that you may be whole and healed. Same word that's used, that was translated by Jerome, perfect, whole and healed. And that's what we're all moving towards, is health, becoming more healthy. And, again, just embrace it, accept it, and know that it's going to be difficult. Tammy and I had a great conversation in DC where she was just really reflecting on some of the negative aspects of her personality. And they are there. I'm married to her. I know. Yeah, but she was just really just kind of stuck on some of the negatives of her personality. And she has some unhealthy one, which can be really overly critical. Typically, the unhealthy one is focused on others, but every now and then, when they're honest and open, they can look at themselves. And I was just able to say, that's how you are sometimes. That's not how you are all the time. And so, if you scored 100 unhealthy, it doesn't mean 100% of the time you're unhealthy. It just means a lot of the time when you reach for that tool, you reach for the unhealthy thing. Think of it like a hammer. A hammer can either build a house or put a hole in the wall. So the unhealthy is the hole in the wall in your relationships. The healthy is, I'm going to build this. I'm going to hang this painting. I'm going to do that way. So just look at it that way and just relax and just know that your spiritual leader, Pastor Matt, that's myself, had a lot of unhealthy stuff, right? Jesus is our Savior. I'm your spiritual leader. Jesus is perfect. We're not. We're trying to become whole and healed. And again, the ticket to that is the truth shall set you free. And we'll talk more about that next week as we deal with the 3s. But we're going to all enter into the truth and know that it's going to set us free, but first it's going to beat us up. That's what the truth does. The truth is a little rough, which is why people don't like it. It's safer in the short term to live in the lies. Now, long term, the lies will destroy you. But it feels safer at front to not know. So anyways, just everybody relax, especially the ones, which I know is impossible, but try.
So this week we're talking specifically about the 2 style, which is the helper. So can you kind of dive in a little bit more, describing what exactly the helper is? What does that style look like in people? Megan, Chris, as you guys have input too, feel free to jump in too. We'd love to hear what your experience is like living out the life of a 2.
Yes.
Can you explain more about the 2?
So the 2, the helper, some personality assessments will call it the loving person. And this person, they live to serve you and care for you. And so a lot of women think that they're 2s, especially if they're moms. And so a woman will adapt to the 2 style because that's how they identify themselves. And that's a really unhealthy place to be pretending you're a 2 if you're not a 2, because you're never going to be exercising who God's truly made you to be. And you're always going to be tired. And, and that's what happens with the adaptive strategies is we're trying to be something we're not, and it's exhausting. So the natural 2 just enjoys serving, feels full of life and full of love when they do something for you. So like, for example, I never asked Megan to get me a, what would you call what you got me, like a healthcare kit pack, rescue pack, right? But she goes and gets that, and it has everything that she thinks I might need if something goes wrong for me. based upon our relationship, our working relationship. And she did that. And it was very loving to me. And I was very appreciative, but she just did that because that's who she is. Nobody told her to do that. She didn't say I ought, she just did. And so that's where the two comes from. So it's just a person. And that's the beautiful side, is they love to serve, care, and they genuinely do. They love us by doing the dishes. They love us by helping take out the trash. They love by participating in things where they see an immediate need. And that's kind of what drives the two, is I can do this and I see that it helps you, and it fuels them. And so the negative of that is they can get so caught up in the busyness of doing things, oftentimes they miss the relationship. And so sometimes, the two, instead of doing the dishes, needs to sit down and connect with the grandkids or the kids or the husband or the wife, and can get overwhelmed with all of the things that need to be done, especially if they have a wing that's a 1. You get that I should and the helper together, and boy, you're off and running, and you're going to miss out on life. So you want to slow down and just really relax. But the 2 is, again, these are the people that serve us, that help us, they participate in everything. You never have to ask a 2 twice to do something. I mean, hey, I need you to work in children's ministry. They'll work in children's ministry till they die. They're just, boom, they're in there. That's what I'm doing. I'm in the parking lot team. Whatever it is, this is my role. This is what I do at church, and they feel very, very safe in that. And again, they love to help. That's when they're healthy. When they're unhealthy, they can use it in a manipulative way. And so I've done all this for you. Now I need you to love me, because the 2's worry is that I'm only lovable when I'm doing things. And so they feel special when they're helping. And when they're not helping, they feel vulnerable and afraid. And so they can become very, very controlling. And so again, especially as parents who are 2's age, they have a really hard time letting kids go because you don't need me. Well, if you've done your job right as a parent, eventually, hopefully, the child becomes an adult and they don't need you. You can still have a loving relationship, but it's changed. You're not controlling the kid. You're not whatever. And that's what the 2 can do, is they can become, when you read some of the personality types, they'll talk about the Italian mom or the Jewish mother that just kind of lords it over everyone and controls the whole family. A 2 can be very, very powerful and can be confused for an 8. So a lot of times you might think a person's an 8, but really what they're doing is they're a 2, and they're controlling the whole family by helping. And so they can become codependent, where they lose themselves in helping maybe an unhealthy spouse or friend or brother or sister, or they can become overbearing, almost pastoral. So a lot of pastors are 2, and they relish in the unhealth of people. Because if my congregation gets healthy, they don't need me. So that's why congregations can get very, very unhealthy and very, very ugly if you have an unhealthy 2 who's the pastor, which you would think, oh, they're really great. They're very caring and very loving, and they come alongside. But the 2 has to work towards identifying and relating with people in just a relationship, but not necessarily being needed. And so, again, like we talked about this weekend, just really sit in the fact that God loves you, but God does not need you. And that's okay. He loves you. He doesn't need you. God is not needy. So, which is important, because the loving person needs to understand that love is not needy, right? God is love. God is not needy. So, and that's just so important for that codependent aspect of I need to be needed. And you can get really, really tweaked in living your life out as your role, especially men. We talked about, as you get older and you retire, that's really, really hard. Who am I if I'm not a fireman, a policeman, if I'm not a businessman, if I don't own my own company, or those things become very, very difficult, because when your identity is wrapped up in what you do, once you stop doing that, who am I?
So Megan and Chris, what has your kind of experience been like as a 2, as you started to uncover this type and how you've seen that play out in your life? Can you kind of describe some of that?
Yeah, I resonate with a ton of what you just said, both the healthy and the unhealthy side of things. I identified really early on in adulthood that I'm predisposed to unhealth. That it was easier to be codependent or to expect love from others because of the things that I was doing. And I didn't want to be that person because I saw how tragic that was for others and their relationships. So I went on this, basically my entire adulthood of counseling, trying to work through these things. Like, how do I be the healthy version of myself? And this was even before identifying 2, just knowing that this was something that I was predisposed to. And so now I've, after lots of time and work, getting to see what healthy version looks like. And things like putting together the rescue pack or the health kit, that really brought me joy. And it wasn't something that I felt like I had to do or that I wanted to earn some sort of love. It was like, oh no, I think this would be really helpful.
Yeah.
And it was great. And so I have to be very mindful of what are my motives? Why am I doing this? And when I start to feel like I'm veering off track and I'm doing something for the wrong reason, then adjusting course quicker than maybe I would have before.
Yeah, and just so you know, if you're a 2, you can feel used really quick because people will use you. And so again, it's, what are we calling it? The safety pack, the health pack, what are we? So what's her motive? If her motive is just to be loving, I love Pastor Matt and I want to do this for him, that's great. If the motive is, if I do this, then that's where the unhealth comes from. And that's going to get me in this place, especially if you're a 2-wing 3, right? So I'm going to climb and I'm going to be more successful. So you've really, really got to watch that because 2s can become really, really bitter. And that's where the pride seeps in. And so, as we talk about these core sins, so last week we talked about the anger and the 1, you might not be aware of how that anger plays up in your life. And as the 2, it might be really hard for you to ferret out your pride. But the pride is, well, gosh, I'm always doing these things for thee, and I didn't get invited to the party, and I didn't get this. And so you have to go back to, okay, why did I help them in the first place? And so I need to do it because it's what I wanted to do, and it's what I felt that I was led to do. And then you're not bitter, and you don't feel left out. And so you just really, really have to constantly check your motives of why am I doing this? And because it's, right, I mean, the Bible actually says, do not grow weary in doing good. And so for the 2, it's like, so okay, keep doing good, but let's make sure we're keeping check on the thermometer of why. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Because if you're hoping that people will love you the way you want to be loved because you serve, well, they might use you, but they're not going to love you necessarily the way that you want to be loved. And so you need to be in relationships with people that love you for who you are and appreciate what you do, but love you for who you are. And that's just really, really important.
Yeah. Chris, did you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just say my journey, now that I have this information, I can look back at my entire life and start figuring out why I did certain things. And I remember a quote from several years back where I started the journey of really pursuing health, where my sister-in-law said, "It's so nice to see you using your powers for good instead of evil."
Wow.
All right?
I love Mega Megs. His sister's name's Mega Megs. I call her Megs and Bacon, Megatron.
And so what that makes me think about is how I actually weaponized my gifts early on in my life. I could read people well. I understood what made them tick. I understood what they needed. And then I would stab them there. And so that's where a lot of my guilt and shame has come into play in this process of learning how to be the better me, the best me.
Yeah.
Is because I can see that it's so easy to abuse the beautiful things that God has gifted you with. And so now what I'm so thankful for is that I'm in a place where my job is literally to be the helper to my boss and pastor and to the congregation of that campus.
Right.
And so it is, it's fulfilling because I get the chance to, and the opportunity almost every day to do things for people without there being some sort of response. And so that's been probably the healthiest outlet that I've ever had for that gifting.
Yeah, you guys are going to love this. Tammy's transmission blew up on Monday. So I had to call Fritz Ford here in town to take the car in. And so the assistant or secretary, I don't know what she would call her job when I pulled in. She goes, "Pastor Matt, I'm a 2 and I'm here to help you." And so, and then this guy named Don came out, who's my project manager or whatever for fixing the car. He goes, "I'm a 2, you were pointing right at me." And I just thought, here's 2 2s in a service industry, and they're right where they're supposed to be. I mean, every day they get to, and I just thought that was great, but it was just funny to me that the next day after I preached that sermon, here I am,
needing help.
Needing help, and I got 2 helpers that are rescuing me at Fritz Ford. It was hilarious. So free commercial for Fritz Ford there.
Yeah, right. They've got some 2s on staff. All right, so we actually have gotten some really great questions in from people in our church who identify with the style of the 2. And after you preached a sermon on that, we got some really great questions in from people both who love 2s and are 2s themselves. So this first one comes in from Anonymous. You'll see why in just a second.
Annie Moss.
My mother is the epitome of everything Pastor Matt said this weekend, and I've known for a while that her pride is the reason that she's not saved because she thinks she can earn her way to heaven. Like Pastor Matt said, her pride is hard to detect because it's masked in the shape of gratitude and concern for others. How can I challenge her pride in a way that doesn't make her more defensive and prideful, in hopes that maybe one day she'll realize her need for God and that she can't earn her way to heaven?
Yeah, pride is just one of those things that I think only God can crack, and you just have to bring it to the Lord. I think you can't show prideful people anything. Prideful people learn from being humbled, and that's through emotional, physical, or spiritual brokenness. So the best tool for a prideful person is a wall. It just is. And if you have somebody that just really, really struggles with pride in your life, the best thing you can do is get out of their way and let them just get some momentum and really whack that thing as hard as they can, because you can't confront pride. You just can't. Pride must be broken. It must be. And so, one of my favorite books is The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis. And there's this scene of, I think she's a 2, but she's a mom demanding that her son leave heaven to come to hell with her, because if he loved her, he would do that. It's just crazy. So that's a great book if you want to stay up late and not be able to sleep. Great book. So what I would just say is that, again, if you want to have a conversation, part of what your mom is doing is she's comparing herself to others. The problem is we're not judged according to the standards of others. Every man and woman will be measured by the righteousness of Jesus. So good luck with that. So that's the question is, are you as good as Jesus? Not are you better than this person? And so that's what the 2 is doing, is comparing really service. Look what I do. Look at everything that I'm doing for everybody else. And that's where the pride comes out in the 2, is look at all I've done for you. And it becomes very, very unhealthy and very, very ugly. And so that's just what I would say, is just really, really pray that God would break her, and hope that it doesn't kill her. But man, I have, some close friends in my life that I have just had lifelong battles with pride, and it's never ending. It's just a never ending struggle. I would not say that pride is one of my primary sins, but it's amazing to me how it wiggles its way into my life and gets me constantly. There's this rock in Newport Beach, I call Pride Rock, where I had to go to and just really confess pride one time about 5 years ago, because it just was wrecking my life. And I was just like, I didn't think I had any pride. So I had to name this gigantic rock after it on the beach in Newport, because that's where it was. So that's just what I would say, is let God do his job, and God's job is to convict. Your job is to get out of the way and be, a person, and thank your mom for what she does do to serve, because if she is a 2, and she's going to be very helpful, you're going to have to develop boundaries. A great book I would read is by Cloud and Townsend. It's called Boundaries. 2s can be very, very overbearing and very, very controlling, especially as they age. 2s have a hard time letting you grow up. So 2s are great when you're little, but as you age, they have a hard time seeing you as a peer, and they unintentionally keep you down because they need you to need them. And so that's why moms have a really hard time transitioning into peer-to-peer relationship, and they just never grow out of that. And so just really, really be careful of that. So I would say let God do his job, and then your job is, make sure that you're loving and appreciative. Think about the ways that we talked about how to love a 2. Thank them specifically for what they've done. Ask them what you can do for them, because that's the best way to get a 2 to admit they have needs, is to say, is there anything I can help you with? And then just try to spend some time, not doing things, but just spending time together. Because, man, if you sit alone long enough, you're gonna have to face your brokenness. So, and that shame. So,
on the topic of kind of asking a 2 to identify their needs, Rio actually wrote in a question. It says, as a 2, I found it difficult to ask for help and let my needs be voiced. I've also realized that sometimes I don't even know what I need, because I've constantly denied myself of having needs or receiving help. As someone who struggles with the shame that stems from that, what are practical things I can do to figure out how to let others help me? Yeah, so I'm going to guess that person's a 2 wing 3, so we'll get into that next week. So the 3 really struggles with self-deception. That's who I am. That's my struggle. And so a 2 wing 3 is going to be very unaware of their needs, and it's legitimate. Like when they say, I don't know what I need, that's true, because the 3 oftentimes is so in pursuit of success, they don't know who they are or what they want. And they can find themselves doing things that they don't even enjoy. Why am I doing this? And so the 2 has to be aware and say, okay, what is it that I need? First, you have to give yourself permission to have needs. I need this. I need this from you. And those are hard conversations to have. Anyone who's in the heart triad, you're going to struggle with the underlying emotion of shame. And so the 2 is ashamed of having needs. Well, that's ridiculous. We all should have needs. And so that's because pride is saying, if I was who I really think I am, I'm not going to have needs. Well, God didn't make you to be alone. We all have needs. We're human beings, and we have
basic needs. And so you have to give yourself permission to have needs, and then really give yourself permission to explore, what do I need? What do I feel like I need? And the best way to really figure that out is, when's the last time you got your feelings hurt? And ask why. Why did that hurt? Why did that bother me? What is going on in me? And so there's an underlying belief in the two. There's something somebody did. And so, you know, and one of the, I think maybe a more shallow need is to have your service recognized, to have people say, I appreciate that. Because it is nice, you know, hey, thank you for taking care of that. And I, you know, for twos, my heart breaks for twos. We talked about this in community group last night. I don't feel like as a culture, we value service. So I just don't think that that's something that's valued in American culture. And that's miserable for twos, because what they're so good at is so underappreciated. You know, we just don't appreciate service. And man, that's the two is just like, how can I help and what can I do? And you know, when we get great service or we get great help, we just kind of move on and we don't think about it. And so I would say acknowledge it. But again, if you're the two, really explore, why am I hurt? What's happening to me? And give yourself permission to be hurt and say that this really upsets me. And so, you know, because what pride does is it divides. It'll separate you from friendships, from your marriage, from your kids, from your coworkers, and you're going to be all alone, which is not what you want. I mean, twos want to be wanted. They want to be needed. They want to be invited. But you have to have real relationships in order for people to not use you. Otherwise, you know, hey, you're really good at this. Can you fix this? Can you come over? If you want to have real relationships, you're going to have to actually work at that. Yeah. That was great. That was a great question.
Yeah. What has kind of identifying and declaring needs looked like for you guys as you've kind of worked through this process of self-discovery?
My community group has probably been the single most influential piece of that for me, because they're the people that they understand me. We talk through life. They hear me sharing things, and then they read between the lines, because they know now that I tell myself I can't have needs, and then I don't voice it. And so even last night, part of the conversation was like, how can we help you? What are ways that we can even ask you what your needs are, so that you respond well to that? And so I think I have had to do the work of telling myself over and over, it's okay to need help.
Yes.
It's okay to not be okay.
Right.
And so that's almost a mantra sometimes, so that puts me in a place of going to the staff at East Valley and saying, hey guys, I've got this big project, big event coming up. Can you guys help me with these various things? Otherwise, I'm going to try to truck ahead and do it all, the whole time being bitter that nobody is helping. And so there's so many reasons for this, but like I have to remember that it's okay to need help.
Right. Go ahead.
Yeah. So feeling very similarly about you, but also I have found that when I do feel appreciated or when someone does thank me, it builds a trust with that person. And so when they ask me, what can I do to help? I feel like it's easier to find a need and ask them to do it because we've kind of built this relationship. And I sort of have to do kind of like a self-assessment. And sometimes it even looks like a checklist, like, okay, let me just run down the things that are in my head. And okay, physically, is there anything that I need? Emotionally, okay, professionally, like what is on my agenda that I could give away? And that's been really helpful because sometimes I'm not aware of the things that I'm doing. And not making the assumption that other people should know what I need. That's been probably the biggest thing. Yeah. I love your example of like asking the team, hey, can you help me with these things versus doing them and then thinking, why haven't you helped me? A lot of times they honestly don't know you need help. And if I don't tell them and then I'm bitter, it's really only my fault. Right. And so trying to identify like, okay, like this person doesn't know that I need this. Let me ask them and see how they respond.
Yeah, and I think one of the ways the two lies to themselves, especially like in professional work, is if I just lead by example, everyone else will just naturally do this. Well, no, they're not. They're not a two. They're going to watch you work your butt off. And so what you have to do is you just say, I need you to help. I need you to participate. I need you to get off your rear and help and do this. And, you know, in my house, nobody has two. So we have to ask every time to do the dishes. My kids are surprised. My son's surprised every week when the dog poops and it needs to be cleaned up. Like the dog is going to poop until she dies. So every single week, and don't naturally gravitate towards that. And if you're not careful, you can start doing it all, and then you get bitter, and then you get upset, and nobody else is helping. Now you're irritable. Now nobody wants to be with you, and now you're more alone, and you feel like, right, it just is this vicious cycle because you've been doing everything, and so you're Marthaing, right? Mm-hmm. You're getting everything getting ready for the meal you're not even going to enjoy. Mm-hmm. So, right? So.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think, like, as a person who's, like, in a relationship with Choose, like, I feel super honored when Megan asks me for help with something. So, like, oh, she trusts me. Like, and I just assume she just does all the things and gets them done all the time, and it's some magical world that she has. But, like, when, like, Megan asks me for help, like, I let her know, like, oh, like, I'm super honored. Like, I would love to help you. Like, and so just knowing, like, if you have Choose in your life and they ask you for help, like, make sure you, like, let them know how honoring that is, and that, like, you really appreciate them asking you for help, because that's a big deal for you. And so I know, like, when Megan's asked for help, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'll totally help you. She asked me for help on a project yesterday. I was like, this is so fun. She's like, I was not going to ask anyone because I thought I just need to do this myself. I'm like, no, I love this. This is great.
Right.
Well, and then I had such a kind of a self-check of like, oh man, I missed an opportunity for someone to find joy in helping me and doing something that they also enjoy, because I was just going to do it myself and be bitter and like angry about it.
Yeah.
And I think that each number kind of expects everybody else to operate how they do.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's especially true for the 2. Like that is part of the fact that we like serving people.
Right.
Is we just operate assuming that this is how, not only how everybody else is, but how they should be.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when I'm doing things for my friends and then they just take it and they're like, thanks, bye. That's really hard.
Yeah.
And it causes kind of like that bitterness and cycling in your head of getting to that point. So
Yeah. So this next question I'm really, really interested in. Danny wrote in and just simply asked, how do I love myself as a 2? So I don't know if you guys want to dive into that.
Yeah, why don't you guys jump in?
It's hard.
It is. That makes me really sad to hear that question, because that has been a huge piece of my story. Can I share a little bit of my story? Okay.
Yeah, please do.
So I essentially, I'll skip a lot of story to get to the point of I spent a lot of my life struggling with same-sex attraction, and specifically in the church. Like I grew up in the church. And so hearing the condemnation and the anger and the rejection my entire life towards a whole group of people meant that I had started believing that I wasn't worth anything and that I was damaged and that I wasn't good enough and all these things. And so I get into my 20s and I start this healing process of figuring this stuff out, talking it through, being real and honest about it. And I still struggle with loving myself because I've spent 30 years not loving myself. So I would say that this is a muscle that we don't often use as 2s, and that we need to exercise for it to function well. And initially, I think one of the really good ways to go about it is to bring other people into it with you, because we're so relational.
Right.
And I've told my friends, I'm probably not going to work out ever by myself, because I already don't want to do it. And then if I'm by myself, there's just no chance. And so the idea of tackling something like this, that's this scary of how do I love myself? How do I care for myself? I think we really do need some support in that. And so I would encourage you, find those few safe people that you can talk to about this, be open and real about it with. And then say, I am trying to figure out how to love myself, and help them love you.
Right.
And I think that gives you permission to love yourself, you know?
Right. Yeah, I think, can I jump in? So, read the 2 into the story in Genesis chapter 3. So Adam and Eve sin, they become aware of their shame, which is the underlying emotion of the 2, 3, 4, and they instantly do something. They cover themselves. So that's the madness of the 2, is the 2 believes that if I just do this, it's going to cover this underlying emotion. And so ultimately, what Adam and Eve recognize is that they do need to be covered, but the question is by what? And so a lot of people don't realize, but the first animal sacrifice then takes place in Genesis chapter 3. God kills an animal, takes the skin from the animal, and covers them. It's the first animal sacrifice in the history of the world. Something's going to die to cover your shame. And then ultimately, what is that? It's Jesus. So we have to bring Jesus into that. And even though because I struggle with shame too, even though I don't feel worthy, that's where Scripture's important. I am worthy because of Christ. And that's where Bible memory and those things, and I have to trust God's word over my feelings. And I am worthy of being loved. I am a son. I'm a daughter. I am these things. These things are true about me. And that's just so important. That's why I think our Easter message resonated with so many people. The stories that we're believing and hearing, they affect us. And it's just so important that lifelong for a 2, I am worthy. I enjoy serving. I love to serve. Don't just, man, that's how God made you. Enjoy that and celebrate that. But don't do that to get love. You are loved. You are loved. And surround yourself with people who really love you and really genuinely care for you and want the best for you. And, Tammy and I think we have such a special place in our heart for 2s because there's no Sandals church without 2s, right? Everybody, all the other 8 personality styles, I'm begging to get them to serve, right? Please, for the love of Jesus, serve, and they don't, and they won't, and they pray about it or whatever. But the 2s, man, jump on board. They love to help. And I just have grown such a deep appreciation for 2s because, they're just such wonderful people. But at the end, they can't serve to get a great relationship with me. They have to serve because they love God and they love doing it. And it can't be an avenue for connection. And that's what you really have to watch yourself as a 2 is if I serve, I'm going to connect. I'm going to be in this group. And man, that's a really, really dangerous way to build relationships, right? I mean, because that's just like strategic suicide. I mean, just don't do that. I mean, you need to have friends who love you for you despite what you do for them. And so, because I'm not a 2, but I serve my wife and my kids because I love them. That service is a part of love. And that's why, we quoted Jesus this week, for the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as ransom for many. I mean, that's part of how the 2 reflects just the core character of God. This is just who you are. But service doesn't make you who you are. So you really got to wrestle with that. Okay, your turn. I know, sorry. I welcome to me. I just start rambling and, Stephanie tries to stay awake.
No, it's all good stuff.
That's good.
I think for me, the biggest thing that I realized was that I was having a hard time receiving compliments. So people would try to say nice things about me or encourage me, and I would sort of just let it roll off. And so that's been really big, is trying to be very intentional to receive. I'm awful at this still, but trying to be better about it. So if someone says, hey, that was really nice what you did for me, kind of like pausing a little bit and soaking it in, being like, yes, I'm Megan. That was something that I did that was nice for someone. Like, this is something that I like about myself, and just kind of sitting in that. Another thing is just trusting God's word. And you had said this, like, if I believe that God is good and God is real, then I need to trust that when his scriptures say that I am worthy and that I'm his daughter and that I'm beautiful no matter what I do, like, I have to figure out how to let that penetrate my heart. And it's really hard, but it's another like intentional step of God isn't like, if I'm not going to believe this, then it makes me look like God is a liar. And I'm like, I don't want to feel that way about him. So I need to believe everything that he says, including the things about me.
Right.
And I think that that's one of the ways that we see our pride play out, is that we are telling God that we're not good enough for his love, that he has told us we are good enough for. Like we are putting ourselves in this place of making decisions for him. And a lot of times that's like discounting ourselves, like taking ourselves out of the picture, saying that we're not what he says we are. So that's a constant battle of having to force yourself to believe the truth that is truth, but that doesn't like hit at the deep level all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just weird how it's just so hard for those of us in the shame quadrant to just really rest in, I'm loved and worthy of being loved. And, it's just so bizarre for me how hard, and that's a lifelong struggle. And then you pair that with pride, which you would think would be self-love, but it's not. It's just pride. And it's a difficult road to navigate.
Could you kind of break that down a little bit, the difference between pride and self-love? Because I think a lot of people probably still have those very intertwined.
Yeah. So I think self-love is healthy. So you are God's creation. You are created in his image and his likeness, and you are worthy of love. So every child of God is an object of God's love and is worthy of his love. And so we need to learn to love ourselves. So the great commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, and your neighbor as you love yourself. The Apostle Paul actually, I don't know that he could write these words now because I think so many people, there's so much more self-hatred now than there was 2000. Paul says this, no one hates his own body, as he's talking about marriage. Well, a lot of people nowadays hate their own body because culture has shifted and we don't value self in a healthy way. So, I think that, God loves me, and that's more than the way I look, how old I am, how young I am, how smart I am. Like there's intrinsic value in me because God's image rests on me. And so I need to trust that. Now, I think pride is kind of, yes, I'm worthy of love, and then I separate that from God, and then that becomes all me. I think as long as who I am is connected to who God is, I think it's healthy. I think when it becomes self-sustaining and it's all about me, and I divorce myself from God, then I think it becomes pride. Look at what I've done. Look at who I am. Look at all that I've accomplished. So I think it's, it's okay for me to say, wow, God's made me a very creative and inspirational speaker. God's done all that in me. Wow, isn't that neat what God's done and how he's created that? When I start saying, look what I am, look what I've done. But then it becomes very, very sinful. There's a level of pride that's not sinful, that it's healthy. Take pride in your school, in your home, in your church. So there's a level of pride. It's not always sinful, but the pride that we're talking about, the core of the two is, and it says, it's a sense of self-righteousness. I've done all these things, therefore I deserve X or whatever. And the truth is, what we deserve according to the gospel is God's wrath. But because of his grace, he saved us. So I just would say it's so many words, man. The subtleties it's just so, the differences are so small. You just have to be really, really careful with blanket statements. But pride in this sense is negative and sinful, not healthy. So I hope that helps.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, I try to give God the credit because it's his. Right. So if there's something where I have identified, okay, I'm really good at this, saying it's not just that I have woken up one day and I'm really good at this. It's that God made me this way and God deserves all the credit. And if I go the other direction, then it becomes all about me and then I become prideful.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So how have you guys learned to really embrace the beautiful side of this style then? Because we've talked a lot about pride. We talked a lot about where you can tend to get off the rails, but how have you kind of learned to embrace the beauty of your style and really all those things to reflect about God? What does that look like for you?
I'm really honored that people feel like they can come to me and trust me, and that when they do, they feel loved and cared for. And it's not something that I have to work hard at or manufacture. And I thought for a long time that was normal for everybody, and then realized that some people don't exude that kind of warmth and caring. And so really trying to appreciate that of people feel really comfortable with me. And I love that I'm able to make people feel that way.
How about you?
Yeah. I have been told multiple times throughout my work history in life that being an emotional person is a weakness. And one of the ways that I've been able to really engage this is, especially as a man who's highly emotional. My response to a lot of things is crying. So I'm just going to put that out there because I hate it.
Me too.
But one of the beautiful things of that is that not everybody has the strength of feeling those emotions.
Right.
Not everybody is able to sit in a room and feel what other people are feeling.
Right.
And so it has served me really well in ministry, being able to understand people, being able to empathize with them. I love that God created me to be relationally smart and adept. It brings joy to me that I can sit here with Megan and we can just connect on such a deep level.
Right.
Because at this moment, we're both feeling each other's feelings, you know? So, so I love being able to do that, the gift that is.
I know I walked in and you were both looked at me with the eyes of do we really have to do this? And we were I'm really going to be on this show. We'll be okay. We don't have to it's really
yeah.
funny.
I mean, it's usually twos are not at the forefront. Twos typically are behind the scenes. So coming on a program like this and, staring into,
very tiny camera in your
very
face.
tiny camera that's broadcasting your face all across the world to billions of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make you feel comfortable?
Yeah. I would generally prefer to be behind the scenes.
Yeah. Helping make it happen, not being out front. But the reality is I'm thankful that you guys just came out and did that. And so I think the beauty of the two is they make life work. The ones and the twos make life happen. So many of the things that we take for granted, without the ones and the twos, they never get done. And so the reality is, after Jesus got done teaching, they ate. That's the reality. Mary ate, everybody else ate, and Jesus probably ate. So we just have to make sure that we don't put the emphasis on the meal, but rather the gathering and coming together. And so we need to figure that out. And so the two just needs to not get the cart before the horse. And remember that the purpose of the meal is actually the relationships. And so that's what it's about. But loving, helping, and serving and bringing people together, right? The two, I'm going to put this magnificent meal together and everybody's going to sit and hear Jesus talk. Well, everybody but my sister Mary, because she needs to get off her butt and get over here and help me, right? So I think her heart was in the right place at the beginning and the desire was right. But in the end, she got the cart before the horse. She needs to remember that the purpose of the meal, the purpose of you helping as a two is that you love people and you want them to feel loved and you want to connect with them that. But if you get so wrapped up in the task, you miss the relationship and you miss the connection piece. And so, details can overwhelm the two with all the things that I need to get done. And they have a hard time shutting it off, resting, relaxing, or entrusting someone else to do it. That's what's amazing, that you can entrust others to help. Because a lot of times twos will just do it all themselves and then they're burnt out and they're tired.
Well, I still mess this up.
Yeah, I was about to say, can you guys give maybe some examples of where you've seen the unhealthy side of your two kick in, or where you're most prone to kind of go off the rails with the two? Off the rails.
Off the rails with the two. This was a 7, boy. We're in Vegas. Yeah.
Oh man. Do you want to go first?
No, go.
Okay. I actually was really convicted this week. There was a huge project that I've been working on, and
I was hoping you were going to say my message.
Was it self-discovery scores for 3,500 people?
It might have been. Yeah. We're so thrilled that this many people have chosen to participate in the self-discovery assessments, but I was not prepared for that. And so as we got deeper and deeper in, I resorted to bad behaviors, old behaviors of, no, I'm already in this. It's too late to ask for help. I don't want to add this burden to anybody else. But then I did start to feel overwhelmed and I started to realize I actually can't do this. I am tired.
Yay!
I know.
I actually can't do this. You have no idea for a 2.
That's such a hard admission.
That's like E equals MC squared for the 2. And it's oh my gosh.
Oh my
Einstein.
Gosh. Yeah. And that was actually when I went to Stephanie and I was like, hey, there's this piece of the puzzle that I need help with. Can you do this? And she lit up and is super thrilled. And I'm just sort of laughing at myself oh my gosh, if I'd asked for this 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't feel this way. And she would have gotten to participate in it with me. And so I would love to say that it doesn't come up very often anymore, but it comes up all the time.
Yeah, I think twos have to consciously remind themselves of when am I assisting and when am I leading. And so you have to make the switch, because the 2 naturally will fall into following. Okay, I'm the lieutenant, I'm following the captain. But what happens when you're the captain? Now you have to that's a really, really different shift personality-wise, because you're not helping, you're leading. And all the personality types, the 1, their perfectionist tendencies can cause them to never delegate, and they can become, at Sandals, with as many thousands of people that we deal with, it can become a bottleneck, a real problem, because you're stopping everything. So the 2 has to do the same thing. Okay, now I'm leading this. I'm not assisting, right? I'm operating in a leadership capacity. I need a team of helpers. Yeah. And so, we just had our staff day today. I mean, and I know our listeners and our watchers weren't there, but we were at our staff day. And I think the thing that's apparent, and you guys would agree right away, is we have a great team.
Yeah.
Every single staff person that's getting up, I'm they're all rock stars. So people say, what's the secret sauce of Sandals? It's the team. We just have an incredible team of people that work really hard and are coming together. But that means sometimes we shift roles. And so the 2 is always going to shift more easily into the secondary role. If you're an 8, you don't have that gear, right? That's going to be really, really hard. But we have 8s that work for me. They have to shift into a second gear. They're not the decision maker. So just know, as the 2, your difficult move is going to be leading and telling others what to do. I need you to do this, or I need you to do that, so that we can accomplish this goal together. And then we can enjoy each other. If we all work together and get this done, but remind yourself that the end goal is to enjoy each other, not to find another project. Oh, we finished 15 minutes early. Let's do something else. And your kids are oh, geez.
Yeah. And to be able to celebrate the project. If we get to the end of the series and I'm just angry, right, because I facilitated
overwhelmed,
thousands
want to quit,
of assessments, then then what value did that bring? Because it'd be great to get to the end and just get to celebrate every single life that was changed. Like if we're at like 3,500 today, like that's 3,500 lives and the people that they know and impact that are totally changed. And it is much more fun to celebrate those wins than to be angry at the end.
And here's how the shame works with being overwhelmed. So the 2 doesn't ask for help because they're ashamed of having needs. They try to do it all on their own. Then they can't do it. Then they feel ashamed because they feel like that's where the pride kicks in. I should be able to do this. I can't. Now I want to quit because I'm no good. I'm terrible. I'm awful, and people hate me. And right. And it just goes down this toilet bowl of negative emotions. When what you need you to do is say, I can't do everything, so I'm going to build a team of people that want to help. You know, my wife doesn't have a lot of 2, but will operate in that. I'm always asking her, you know, with Cultivate, do you really need to wrap 4,000 flowers? I'm fairly certain that there are some other ladies in our church that can do that. So let's ask so that you can spend time preparing the message, right? But she gets wrapped up in the details of, all of these things need to be perfect. And it's like, yeah, but part of leading a movement and leading a group of people is incorporating other helpers. And there's a lot of other 2s that would love to help, you know, that would love to be a part of that. You know, I thought about our, again, back to our church today, you know, I didn't know that we have people who come on Fridays and volunteer 8 hours at our church on Fridays to do like all kinds of projects. I'm like, that's incredible. I didn't know that. I don't, you know, which is great because I can't know everything. You know, our church is too big, but man, that's incredible. But that allows people to serve in a capacity and saves the church thousands of dollars. It's crazy. So
and I was leading some leadership talks on Sunday at East Valley, and I realized that while I was telling our leaders that one of the things we value is being able to build teams and scale and grow yourself by bringing more people in to help you, someone challenged me and said, well, who are you building up to take your spot? And I was like, oh.
I'm guessing that was an 8. Yes.
And so it was just that realization that I do believe that the way that our organization, the way our church grows, the way anything grows, is by duplicating yourself and growing other people and help bringing them into places where they can do that. But I don't do it because my pride is stepping in and saying, I'm the only one that knows how to do this right.
So as we kind of wrap up now, the question we want to ask everybody on this is just how has this process of self-discovery helped you grow in being real with yourself, God, and others?
Whoa, that's a simple question. Let's just wrap up with this easy question.
Talk about your entire process of learning about yourself.
Oh, man.
Divided into these 3 areas. We can start with just yourself.
Okay, let me lighten it a little bit. Anything surprise you about this self-discovery process about your 2? Anything like because I mean that's really true self-discovery is whoa. Anything surprise you?
Yeah. For me, it was actually something that you said in the sermon series this weekend when you were talking about being real with God and that 2s really struggle connecting. And I felt that, but I think I sort of downplayed it maybe. And you put quite a large spotlight on the importance of us connecting with God and that we feel like we can't connect with him because of our shame. And that was really real for me, and probably so real that I didn't really want to go there, that I was like, okay, well, I can definitely work on myself. I'm used to that. I can work on like how I relate to others and that I can work on that. And it's like, but I'll table the God part for later. And then you came out with a flashlight and I was like, oh no, I can't just wait on this. My relationship with God is more important than everything else.
Yeah,
that was really big for
me.
Well,
and you know, so the loving person at the core of everything is craving love. And so grace is what unlocks that intimacy that you desire. But in order for you to have that, right, you need to invite Jesus into that shameful place. He has, you know, if you want to experience God's love, you have to invite him into your shame. That's the way that what does Jesus say? To whom much has been forgiven. And those are the ones that love. And so we've got to invite God into that, just that radical place of grace that we need in our life where we just are not who we want to be. And for the core sin of pride, that's so hard. It's so hard because it's really hard for me to say that that's the truth about me, that I did that I felt that, or I thought that. And I mean, there's all kinds of things. How about you? Anything surprise you about yourself?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've learned is that the tendency for me, and probably a lot of other 2s, that we honestly just would never have noticed if someone hadn't pointed it out, is it is easier to feel what someone else is feeling than it is to feel what I'm feeling. And it's because I'm so used to the shame. I'm so used to all the self-loathing and stuff that has come up throughout my life,
Right.
That I set that aside so that I can like help others. Because if I feel like I'm in this, then I'm stuck and I'm not being helpful to the people around me because I'm trying to deal with myself, and then that's selfish.
Right.
And so the surprising piece for me, the real with self piece with me is recognizing that I need to step into inviting God into my shame and taking the time that we really need, whether we say we need it or not.
Whether we want to need it or not.
We really don't want to need it, but we really do need Jesus. And I think that's one of the hardest pieces for twos to be in relationship with him, is because we need him and we are not okay with needing anything or anybody.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was good.
That was good.
One last thing, Andrew actually sent in a question on behalf of his small group. They loved the prayer that we had for ones in the message that you did about them. What's a great prayer for twos to
I
maybe
know, I
take
forgot
with
to
them?
write it. That's what happened. I'll work on it this week. Yeah.
Yeah, or even just like a
Because I added the how to love it too. I need to add the prayer. I just
Even just
off
something to take
the
away.
cuff here. It would have been nice if you asked me that before the program. We were waiting for in and out. I think for the two, just, God, help me to love myself the way you love me. God, help me to see myself the way you see me. And so, because we need, right, we're the helper. So God, help, and maybe God, help me to love myself the way that you've shown me to love others. Like if we can just give the empathy that we have for others to ourselves, man, the two is just going to be such a healthy person, because the two actually sees the needs and the concerns of others, but they're blind to what they need. And they're so wrapped up. And again, that's where that codependency comes from. They just get lost. They get lost in the urgency to help and serve others. And sometimes they get lost in things that people don't even want help on. I mean, that's where the two gets real dysfunctional, right? Let me tell you what you need.
Yep.
And so, and that's what Martha does with Jesus, right? I mean, she's telling off. That's a whiff. Like if you're a two, like you're telling Jesus what to do.
Yeah.
So I just would say, God, help me to see myself the way I see others, and help me to love myself the way that you love me. I think that would be the prayer for the two. And then my prayer for the twos is that they would be in relationships with people that love them and not ones that use them. I think twos, I hate to say this. I don't know if I want to say it. I think twos get used in the church a lot. I think they get guilted and they get used a lot because, especially like if you're led by a three that's so, driven, like for goals and goal oriented, it just becomes about what I need you to do for me. And so, and we'll talk more about that next week, about how I've had to wrestle with making sure that I'm authentic in all things because, but anyways, just really, really, if you're a two, you need to pick a shepherd well, and you need to pick a church well, because churches are abusive and shepherds are abusive. And oftentimes you're going to think about all these twos, they're going to stand before God on Judgment Day, and they didn't build anything for Jesus. They built all this stuff for some dude and his ego or whatever else. And so I wish it weren't true, but there's a lot of people in religious stuff for all, I don't know why, but they're just in it, man. I just assume if I was going to go after power and wealth, I would have pursued another venue. Because I think it's a lot easier to make money and have power outside the church. But people, for whatever reason, they go into the church for just unhealthy reasons. And I think you experienced some of that as a kid, just, browbeating you in the name of love. I mean, because that's going to attract, the homosexual community to Christ. It's just ridiculous. And, and I don't know how we got that way as the church, so I apologize for that. It's just ridiculous. But just know that you have to be so careful as a two who you surround yourself with, because people will use you and not love you. And that's right. That's at the core of your heart. If you get rejected and used, all they're doing is reinforcing that sin that's in you that says, see, you're not worth it anyways. And that's just tragic. And just know that shame is going to gnaw at your soul as a two. And so the pride, it's not there, I dealt with that. You know, I had a guy tell me this, a pastor tell me this. Yeah, I dealt with my pride. I'm like, clearly. Yeah, it swallowed you. That's how you dealt with it. So just know that pride and shame, right? That's your left hand and your right hand of your struggle. And right until Christ comes, I'm gonna work on these two things, and I'm gonna monitor these two things. I'm gonna make sure that they don't destroy me, because that's what they'll do. And so, if Christ wanted to just wipe all that away, he would. I think part of our journey is growing in the midst of those struggles, and truly becoming who we are. I mean, I think, right? I mean, Paul, the author of Hebrews says that we should not get mad at God when he disciplines us, because he disciplines his sons and his daughters, and he's trying to craft us into something that we couldn't be through any other thing than suffering. And that's why I think suffering is central to the Christian faith, is somehow through this heartache, we come forth, like Job says, as gold. And so for the two, shame and pride, my left and right hand, my struggles, and I got to try to navigate that. So just again, if you're a 2, I love you, and please be so sweet to a 2. We just need them. They're such precious people, and they can be annoying, especially if it's like your grandma, and they're constantly like trying to serve you by, let me wipe your face or whatever. But man, just love on them, and try to, give them boundaries for how they can serve and what they can do. And again, especially if your mom is a 2 or your dad's a 2, you're like, Mom, I'm 45. I can wipe my own butt. So my mom's gonna love that. I love you, Mom. So, but my mom has a lot of 2, so she's awesome.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode on the 2s. Thank you, Megan and Chris, for
you guys did great.
Stepping out from behind the scenes.
Yes.
Thanks for having us.
And you can find all the notes for this episode at debrief.show/106. We'll have a link to the message that Pastor Matt did on the 2, so you can get even more about this. If you haven't listened to that yet, get that self-discovery link. We'd love to have all of that for you there. And we will be wrapping up this episode with the song that was specifically written for 2s this week by our music director, Matt Ritchie, and some other folks on our team. So that'll be right on at the end of this episode. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Thanks.
My love is a flame. It's a fire burning bright, a love uncontained. Lights the way back home in the dead of night. Before a fire to burn, it needs to breathe. And every breath can only give what it receives. My love is a wave, like an ocean deep and wide, a love uncontained, as boundless as the open sky. But even the tides will wax and wane, and even the sun can rest once night has turned to day. I can rest in every blessing, not just giving, but receiving. I can love you, let you love me, loved for more than what I can bring. My love is a storm, it's lightning in my bones, a love uncontained, like a heavy rain the clouds can't hold, and even the storm will find its end. And there in the quiet peace the sun will rise again. I can rest in every blessing, not just giving, but receiving. I can love you, let you love me, loved for more than what I can bring. no one needs me. Am I really lovely when you know what I need? I can rest in every blessing, not just giving, but receiving. I can love you, let you love me, loved for more than what I can.